Alright, looks like we are up and running on YouTube and also on Twitch. Nice, nice. Have to see if we've got any YouTube content to look at today. Got a few articles, bit of Hopium for you guys, and a good bit of banter on LinkedIn, where I've been sharing a couple of studies about vegetarians and vegans having higher IQ than meatheads. Anybody surprised by that news? Anybody find that at all surprising? I didn't think it was that surprising, personally. But we've got some meatheads mad over there and copying in the comment section, so we'll go and have some fun with that in a little bit. Hey VPM, how's it going? Hey Po, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. We have our usual one Twitch viewer, so welcome to our one Twitch viewer as well. I think we haven't really seen any growth on Twitch, and probably about a month into multi-streaming at this point, so I think I'll probably go ahead and close my restream pretty soon. I mean, YouTube's where it's at, really, isn't it? Let's be real. So we've got a bit of Hopium, we've got a few bits of good news to go over. And the best news, of course, it's the 1st of March. So new month, beginning of a new month. And I've been waiting on tender hooks. Twitch is really not good for growing. Yeah, I heard it was good for discoverability, but I think I was misled. Are you streaming anywhere else, VPM, or just on YouTube? I think YouTube's where it's at, really. I'm especially excited to start a new month because I ran out of credits on my AI video editing software, which I use. It's not AI video in the sense that you see the AI slop on all of the platforms now, but it's basically just makes it easier for me to edit clips from stream. So basically I have a few of them lined up and ready to go, but I have not yet been able to fire them out because they need a little bit more editing. But 1st of the month, so I just about uploaded one. It's a bit of Hopium baiting, and I've put it in the vegan subreddit, and nice, I'm seeing 7 upvotes already on that after 9 minutes. That one's going to fly, I think. Talking about record high Veganuary participation. This is not new news. This was, they announced this like, I guess about a week ago or a couple of weeks ago, that there was record participation in Veganuary. But as we talked about on stream, probably last week, it was unexpectedly high participation. They've actually announced record participation in Veganuary every year since the start of Veganuary. Right, so every single year that Veganuary has been the highest participation ever. But in this case, it actually exceeded expectations. So we had the graph where we were kind of seeing how it's growing each year. And looking at the trends where we're seeing sort of lower percentage growth as it matures and comes to, and you know, my analysis was that it was kind of flattening out. But the team at Veganuary had other ideas. And we actually saw the highest year-on-year growth for about 5 years, I think. Highest year-on-year growth since 2021. So that's a real bit of good news, and I'm hoping, you know, posting the Hopium over on the vegan subreddit is very good for getting discovered. So I'm hoping that's going to be a bit of fuel for getting some more people on the channel, getting some more people in the live streams. We all need a bit of hopium these days, don't we? It seems to be a constant barrage of the negative headlines from, if you ask me, meat industry interests, right? PR companies putting stuff out that paints veganism in a bad light, gives us all the impression that veganism's going downhill. We've seen that they do this in the vegan subreddit, and it's no secret that they have engaged PR companies to try and give that impression. But if you look for it, and if you know where to look, and you have a bit of understanding to be able to analyze it, there's actually a good amount of hopium around for veganism and the plant-based movement, and in particular alt proteins. So we got a little bit on alternative proteins, but first I want to start off with this article from Vegan FTA. I think we're going to have to add this to our regular circuit of news sources. I'm going to look at Green Queen and Veg Economist and plant-based news and veg news. I think I'm going to have to add Vegan FTA because they do have a bunch of articles on here. I've never really thought of this as a news source, but this one was brought to my attention the other day, and it's pretty good news, so I thought we'd go over it. Stream on Kick as well, better discoverability but very low views. Ah, interesting VPM. Yeah, I've thought about doing either Kick or Rumble. They're kind of the edgy platforms, right? They say monetization's good on Kick, but yeah, I don't know how big the vegan audience is over there. Got hoovering going on outside. Maybe I'll give it a second so my sound's not fucked on the clip, hey? I need to watch the swearing as well. Apparently that affects your monetization, so I'm in a bad habit. I'm a bit of a swearer. But apparently dropping F-bombs is not... The algorithm doesn't look favorably on it. Who knew? Pretty lame, if you ask me, but there you go. You can hear that just a little bit, right? Yeah. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, so I've got the Veganuary one up, and I have another couple of good clips that are ready to go from a couple of streams ago. One of them is about Oatly being based. One of them is about the Better Chicken commitment. I'll probably do that one soon, actually, while it's fresh. And then a good bit of hopium about the beef prices as well, with US cattle herds plummeting amongst record high beef prices in the US. No, I don't think so, Poe. I think chat's immune. You can say what you like. Christian advertisers don't like bad, meaningless words. Is that so? Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can see why they do it if they have if they're advertising kids' products or whatever. Makes sense. I'll try and keep a lid on it a little bit, but I don't want to be too. I want to be me, you know. I want to be able to say what I want largely. So there we go. I like Twitch, but not for this content, usually gaming or yapathon. Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of yapathon. But yeah, it's pretty mid over there. I always have one viewer, and occasionally they post the same spammy link in chat, so I don't know if it's just pure bots. Or pure bot, I guess. But there you go. UK government moves to close cow mega farm. Actually, it's not coming. Can you guys hear that, Hoover, or no? I think it's not too bad, actually. All right, well, look, we'll kick on. I can't put it off forever. UK government moves to close cow mega farm loophole. The UK government is preparing to close a regulatory gap that has long allowed industrial cow meat and dairy farms to evade environmental permits required of other intensive units. Cow, dairy, and meat megafarms, including all-year-round shed systems, and outdoor feedlots fattening thousands of cows, have repeatedly been linked to slurry pollution incidents, yet have operated without the same environmental licensing imposed on large pig and bird operations. This shift follows years of scrutiny, including investigations by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism that revealed how dairy slurry, a mixture of excrement and wastewater, spreads on fields as fertilizer, has been one of the most frequent cause of incidents damaging rivers and land. Some intensive dairy farms were shown to be responsible for multiple pollution events, fueling public concern about the environmental toll of hyper-intensive cow rearing. A government environmental improvement plan, followed by a white paper on cleaning up rivers, has now confirmed its intention to consult on bringing large cow farms into the environmental permitting regime. Yeah, this seems like a weird omission to me. Why would you have environmental permits required for pig and poultry operations, but not for cow operations? I would have thought that, if anything, the cow farms are going to be even more polluting than the pig and poultry farms. Now, the manure spread on fields as fertilizer, that seems like it's kind of a different issue, right? Because that's not actually occurring on the cow farms. It nevertheless does cause runoff into rivers and causes water pollution and so on. But that's kind of a different issue, I would have thought. But yeah, the pig and poultry farms are regulated. Why would they not have the same for cows? It looks like they're going to update that. Under current arrangements, only the largest intensive farm birds and pig farms require environmental permits issued by the Environment Agency and devolved bodies, which set strict conditions and trigger inspections. Earlier investigative work uncovered at least 10 vast outdoor cow feedlots in counties such as Kent, Derbyshire and Norfolk, fattening up to 6,000 cows a year, while officials admitted they kept no national record of such units. Wow, okay. So yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with this. You're required to have the Environment Agency give permits for polluting activities for cow and for pig and poultry farms over a certain size. I think I don't want to guess numbers, but it's like that is pretty big already, right? It's like thousands of pigs, thousands of poultry that you have to have before you need these permits. And I guess, I mean, in my mind, cow farming tends to be a smaller number of animals, because this is the only situation where you have like pasture fed, right? You don't really have pasture reared pigs and chickens because they can't eat grass, right? So when you hear farmers talking about, grasslands, and that's, can only be used for rearing livestock, really we're talking about cows. And if you look on maps of animal farms, if you kind of get the pins where all the animal farms are, we're looking at this on Transparent Farms website and the thing that Robbie Lockie made as well. If you look at the pins where the animal farms fall, if you zoom in on any given one of them, they're most likely going to be a cow farm. Because it is the case that, there's a ton of, smaller scale cow farming operations whereas pig and poultry tend to be concentrated in these very large units, and therefore there aren't that many of them in comparison. But this is saying that there are, in fact, vast outdoor cow feedlots in Kent, Derbyshire and Norfolk and other counties, fatting up 6,000 cows a year, and officials don't have a national record of them. So I guess there's no requirement for permits for these mega farms for cows, and as a result there's actually no record of how many there even are, which seems wild. Again, I would have thought that the cow farms are going to be the most polluting, much more so than the pig and poultry farms. So I would have thought that would be where your priority is. Since January 2024, 453 pollution incidents have been linked to dairy and meat from cow farms in England, compared with 123 involving farmed pig, birds and pig operations. Okay, yeah, so 3 times as many, pretty much, or more. 453 linked to dairy and meat from cows versus 123 linked to birds and pig operations. So this is totally backwards. Why would we not have permits for the 3x more polluting systems? The government has stated that cow farms are a significant source of water and air pollution, including ammonia, and that it will explore approaches that maximise environmental gains while minimising costs and bureaucracy for farmers. Of course they're going to say this, right? It's probably going to be DEFRA that is responsible for doing these permits, and as we know, they are, largely see their role as looking after farmers, and avoiding putting too much burden on farmers while also regulating them to the extent that it's necessary. From a vegan 2.0 perspective, we want the cost and bureaucracy for farmers, right? Because we want to push up that supply curve. We want to make it more expensive to rear animals. And they're talking about minimizing cost and bureaucracy, but of course there will be some of it, right? When you introduce regulations that now you have to deal with pollution in a certain way, you can't have, you can't just stick it anywhere you want and bang it in the rivers as they have been doing. Clearly that's going to impose a cost. In the absence of any regulation, the producers are going to be doing the cheapest thing possible that they're allowed to do. And so when you have to have regulation and say, well, you can't do this anymore, or this is too polluting, you have to have some proper way of dealing with it, that is going to imply some additional costs for the most part. If it didn't, and there was just as effective way, or like a cheaper way of doing it, well then farmers would be doing that. Right, they'd be doing it already. James Wallace, CEO of River Action, said extending permits to dairy and beef units would give regulators the hard data they need to understand where cattle numbers in a river catchment have become unsustainable and to target action where pollution is being driven. Yeah, it's wild that they don't have data on this. There's investigative journalism required to discover vast outdoor cow feedlots because the government doesn't have any record of how many there are. That's bonkers. Why would you not have data on this? Let's have a look at the Transparent Farms website, because they've got that nice map. And this is what I'm talking about. If we zoom into a given area, we're going to see most of these are cow farms, right? Cows, 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 cows. Cows, cows, cows. Cows, cows, cows. That's because most of the individual farms will be smaller scale. And they must have filters on here. Here we go. Yeah, so dairy farm. So these are all dairy farms now. And now if we untick that and just do intensive pigs. Yeah, there's far fewer of them. Now let's look at intensive poultry. again, far fewer of them overall. Now, there's these kind of hotspots where, in Wales, this is where the River Wye problem is going on, because they have all of these intensive poultry units. And Norwich as well, we know that this is a big farming area. Cattle finishing, this must be the feedlots, right? So there's going to be fewer of these as well, we think. Yeah, okay, not very many of these at all. Now, it's a little bit counterintuitive, but on this view, the filters which show us fewer farms, we might think, well, that's a good thing, right? We want there to be fewer farms. But the reason for that is because the production is concentrated in intensive units. So actually, from the animal's perspective, that's a bad thing. Not only does fewer farms not necessarily imply fewer animals, right? There are way more chickens in the farming system than there are cows, but there are fewer chicken farms than there are beef and dairy farms. So, again, it's a little bit counterintuitive, pardon me, but for a given number of animals, essentially the higher the number of farms, the better, if the number of animals is held steady, because it's going to mean more smaller farms and fewer intensive farms, right? That's why we look at dairy. I wonder if this actually tells us anything about them. I guess not. Oh, we still have some poultry ones showing up, even though we've got only dairy ticked here. That's a bit weird. So yeah, the majority of farms on here are going to be cows, but each of those individual farms is going to have far fewer animals, right? And then we have just like relatively few poultry and pig farms, but each of those individual farms is going to have a hell of a lot more animals. I think it's like 40,000, I want to say 40,000 chickens to require the permit for poultry. Fewer farms but more animals, that's a sign of more factory farming. And then the cattle finishing, yeah, there's not very many at all, but again, each of these has a lot of animals, because these are going to be the feedlots, basically. So this is a useful resource for anyone doing IRL activism in the UK. I'll put that in chat, transparentfarms.org.uk. You know, Voldemort's turban, I think I'm going to eat you. I think, unfortunately, I am going to eat you. Because last time what we had is this person getting into a bit of a scuffle with friend of the channel, Racelever, who, in their excitement, misdirected some of their rage towards one of my mods, and Racelever was subsequently timed out by the said mod, and they haven't been back here since. So while I generally like to keep it quite open, we are going to be eating Voldemort's turban. For the greater good. And my hope is that by performing this yeeting, we will get a sort of Full Metal Alchemist situation where we can get back Racelever into chat. We miss you, Race. We want you back. I've clicked timeout in my OBS restream chat for Voldemort's turban, but I don't know. There's not a very good interface for it. Let me come and do it on real YouTube. Yeah, I'm afraid so, VT. I mean, you're being antagonistic, and my OBS restream chat for. Whoops, there I am. Okay, nice. Yeah, you've been Yeetus Deletus. Hide user on this channel. That's what we want to do. Sorry, VT. You got to go. And Race, if you see this clip, we want you back. We want you back, for God's sake. There you go. We might get a bit of peace now. And the chat is safe again. Hey, and Def, how's it going? Wow, there's a lot of people in here today. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining. Yeah, it might be good for engagement, to be fair, having a debater in here, but I don't know really. On the one hand, you get people arguing back and forth, and that's gonna, that's good for the algo and everything else, but this isn't the town square, okay? This is our bubble. This is our echo chamber, alright? We're not obliged to have anti-vegans in here, so Yeetus Deletus, Voldemort's turban, you're gone. Sorry about that, buddy. Well, there you go. So this looks like good news in any case. The news is that it's going to explore approaches that maximize environmental gains while minimizing costs and bureaucracy for farmers. So it looks like no firm commitment from the UK government to start regulating the cow farms, but they have acknowledged that there's a problem there and they're going to do something about it, basically. Let's see if we can find another source talking about this. DEFRA cow mega farms. Oh yeah, here we go. We've got the Bureau of Investigative Journalism as well. Oh look, this starts with they pollute more than massive pig and chicken farms. In the UK, you don't need an environmental permit to run an industrial beef or dairy farm. That loophole first highlighted in a joint investigation we did with The Guardian. This is Bureau of Investigative Journalism. Could now be closed as the government considers expanding the permitting system. An environmental improvement plan published late last year has suggested that it was on its way, and it was confirmed in a recent white paper outlining plans to clean up the UK's rivers. Dairy farm slurry. Okay, we read this in the other article. I won't repeat the whole thing. Look at this. Look at this paragraph. This is what I'm always saying about increasing the cost of production, right? Although the plans to look at permits have been welcomed by animal welfare and climate campaigners, farming organisations are concerned about the potential impacts on businesses. Yeah, that's going to make it more expensive to produce beef and dairy. Sorry. You don't get to dump cow shit everywhere in UK rivers and cause massive amounts of pollution anymore. Sorry about that. You have to properly process and dispose of pollution caused by having up to 6,000 cows feeding in massive feedlots. Soz. The relationship between the UK government and farmers at an all-time low after the divisive row over inheritance tax and uncertainty over subsidies. Yeah, these are both things... This is so interesting because these are both things where we probably are siding with the farmers. Again, it's a little bit counterintuitive, so you have to stay with me here. there was an announcement last year, I guess it was last year, the year before, that they're ending inheritance tax exemptions, or no, not ending, but reducing inheritance tax exemptions for farms. It used to be that if your home is also a farm, you have some sort of exemptions for inheritance tax. You pay less inheritance tax. Now, there are some problems with that. I actually know somebody who their family's well off. They live in a big house in the countryside, and they started rearing pigs in order to qualify as a farm so that they would pay less inheritance tax. So there are some issues with that, right? You get people kind of playing around with it in order to get tax exemptions. But that said, this is an exemption which would only be applying to the small-scale farms. This is that only counts if it is also your home. So it doesn't count for factory farms. It was a tax advantage, basically, for small-scale non-factory farms over factory farms. Now that that tax advantage is gone or diminished, right? I think there is still some exemption. The factory farms are rubbing their hands. It's making the factory farms more competitive against the small farms because the small farms have fewer tax exemptions than they used to. So one of these things that, you see a lot of vegans kind of celebrating, if you think about it, I'm not so sure that it is a good thing. The subsidies as well, this is mostly, at this point, environmental payments. Payments to farmers to do things like hedgerows and rewilding, basically, that will sequester carbon on their land. And again, this is something where vegans are like, yeah, boo subsidies for farms. But basically, these subsidies were essentially environmental payments and would be alternative revenue streams for farms that don't entail farming animals. And the UK government has kind of rode back on some of that as well. So again, not really a good thing from our perspective. The regulation of the beef and dairy mega farms, definitely a good thing from our perspective. But the end to inheritance tax and the end to environmental subsidies, I think not so much. With trust in agricultural policies hanging in the balance, extending the environmental permit scheme could mean another clash over the future of UK farming. Rachel Hallow, Vice President of the National Farmers Union, said such a change would have a direct impact on farm business growth at a time when increasing growth is a core mission of this government. So let this sink in for anyone who's skeptical about welfare measures or about environmental regulations, any of this kind of basket of regulations of animal farms that many vegans, in particular abolitionists, might say, this is not a good thing, this is making people just feel better about having animal products, it's not addressing the core problem, it's not ending the exploitation. The farms, the animal farms, are really opposed to these changes because they understand that if they have more regulations and they have to deal with pollution properly, it's going to mean higher costs for them, it's going to mean that they can't grow as much, they can't farm as many animals. Okay, aren't I always saying this? Aren't I always saying that more regulation of farms is a good thing from the vegan perspective because it's not necessarily about the better conditions for the animals that are still farmed, though I do think that's also a good thing. It increases the costs for farms and therefore they're going to farm fewer animals as a result, right? She added that a meaningful consultation with the industry is needed on the permitting system and that it should incorporate the NFU's farmer-led approach, which rewards those already tackling pollution. Yeah, meaningful consultation with the industry means get lobbied. Get lobbied, pal. Get in a room with the NFU and other farm lobbying organizations and have us tell you how devastating this is going to be if we have to actually take responsibility for all the massive amounts of pollution that we're causing, and get persuaded out of it. Change your mind. Sack it off. Let us carry on polluting as much as we want to and not paying a penny for it. That'd be the ideal thing from the farm's perspectives, right? So, meaningful consultation with the farm industry, that is going to mean get lobbied. One beef and sheep farmer based in the Peak District told Farmers Weekly, "We cannot stand any more costs being landed at our door." Any regulation skeptics in chat? Anyone not in favour of slapping as many regulations as possible on animal farms to make it unviable to farm animals? I mean, this is how it's going to end. Right? This is how we're going to get to the point where farmers say it's not worth doing this anymore. They're not doing it for a laugh. They're not rearing cows and sheep to send to slaughterhouses because it's a great laugh. They're doing it because it's a profitable business. And you know what? It's not even that much of a profitable business anymore. And the more that they have to actually take responsibility for the massive amounts of pollution that they're producing, the less profitable it gets. It was great when we didn't have to take any responsibility and we could just produce as much pollution as we want and bung a load of cow shit in the rivers everywhere. That was great. Those were great times for the farm business. But if you have to take responsibility for the pollution, if you have to have certain standards around animal welfare, if you have to have certain standards around worker health and safety, around the kind of equipment that you're using, this is how it ends. Okay, so don't tell the government that. Because we're saying the same thing the farmers are saying at this point, right? It's going to increase the cost of farming animals. It's going to be another cost for animal farms. And that is how we reduce the number of farmed animals. Another based in Somerset said that this is yet another blow for farmers already in the doldrums. We try our best to keep slurry and manure out of rivers, not just pouring it in water, but pouring it in like water companies still do. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Well, they try their best to keep slurry and manure out of rivers. Don't regulate us. We're trying our best, okay? No need for regulations. Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs has yet to publish any costs associated with the possible cattle permits, but a consultation is expected to address any fees that could be levied on farmers. James Wallace, CEO of the charity River Action, said extending permits to dairy and beef units would give regulators the hard data they need to understand where cattle numbers in a river catchment have become unsustainable and to target action where pollution is being driven. Lindsay Duncan, UK farming manager at World Animal Protection, a campaigning organisation, told us that the plans were a much-needed step in the right direction to address cattle farms' devastating impact on our local waterways and our environment. But she cautioned we also need stricter criteria and audits to make sure they're properly enforced. Yeah, that's very true. It's all well and good having rules and permits for pollution from mega farms, but we do need more auditing capacity. The actual auditing of farm regulations is a bit of a joke currently. There's just not the capacity for local authorities. It comes down to local authorities to actually do the auditing that they need to. So there needs to be more resources for local authorities to actually be checking that farms are following the rules, because many of them are not. Under current rules, only the largest intensive poultry and pigs farms are required to hold environmental permits, which are issued by the Environment Agency and its devolved counterparts. Each permit gives a strict set of conditions that limit farms' environmental impacts and require regular inspections. In 2018, okay, we read this on the other article. 7 years on, the government has confirmed its intention to consult on the issue. Okay, so this is going to be probably another consultation like we have had on the cage-free consultation. Let me spam this in the chat since there's a few people in here. This is a Google Doc with a link to a consultation that the UK government's currently doing on cage-free systems for egg-laying hens. And here's all the answers. I've given you all the answers, okay? So you can go click this link to the consultation at the top, copy paste or just copy the answers that I've indicated here for the relevant sections. And we know that the egg industry is going to be coming out now and opposing these reforms. So again, more regulations for the, in this case, egg industry. We're going to drive up the cost of eggs, okay? Keep it on the DL. But this is the mechanism through which we make animal farming unsustainable and not viable. Right, so we read this on the other article. Farmers' concerns about costs may be warranted. A recent farm profitability review warned that UK farming was effectively being priced out of survival. Oh no. Not the animal farms. No. Its author, ex-NFU chief Minette Batters, called for a reset of supply chain law to curb unfair practices. Research in 2022 found that UK farmers were sometimes left with less than a penny's profit from the food items they produced. What? I'm assuming that this means a penny on the pound, in the sense that their profit relative to the final retail price is less than 1%. Not that their overall profit is less than 1p, I'm assuming. Although some farms are just straight up unprofitable and loss-making. That is a thing. And of course, they're not economically viable, right? They're eventually going to have to close down. So that'll be terribly sad. The research examined a number of food staples, including beef burgers, and found that after intermediaries and supermarkets had taken their cut, sometimes sometimes less than 1% of the profit remained for the farmer. Yeah. Not that the total farm's profit was a penny for the year. For a standard pack of 4 burgers, meat processors sometimes made 10 times what the farmer did. For beef farmers surviving on such low margins, any further red tape or costs from mandatory environmental permits will be especially unwelcome. Well, there you go. Sorry, we can't be dealing with the pollution from feedlots like this. Jeez, look at them. There's no life for these cows, is there? I can't make the image any bigger, but that is no life. Well, good on the UK government. We appreciated the recent animal welfare strategy in the UK. We've now got the consultation on cage-free egg systems. And we're now getting more regulation to make animal farms, in particular large cow feedlots, take responsibility for the pollution that they're producing. And, you know, world's smallest violin, it might make some of those farms unprofitable. Sorry. Right, what should we do next? I've got a couple of good alt protein hopium bits, but I've also got some good LinkedIn content. The LinkedIn content's pretty lit, if I do say so myself. Maybe I'll string that out, because that's the trolling low IQ meatheads that we've got for you. So that's good fun. That's coming up. Stay tuned. I'm getting better at this streaming thing, aren't I? China gets its first industry standard to propel plant-based food growth. Base China, we have read before about Base China on the channel. Investing tons in cultivated meat production. And it looks like they're doing bits on the plant-based side as well. China, we love China. Let's see, a Chinese trade association has developed the country's first national plant-based food standard to address the industry's biggest commercial challenges. Chinese companies are accelerating the country's drive to become a sustainable protein powerhouse with a new initiative to enhance the marketing and understanding of plant-based food. Uh-oh, we know what that looks like in Europe, don't we? Enhancing the understanding of plant-based food in Europe means banning a load of terms that are widely understood on plant-based products. But from the vibe of this story, I'm sensing that China is being a bit more sensible than we are in Europe. The China Chamber of Commerce of Foodstuffs and Native Produce recently launched a national-level group standard for the plant-based industry, aiming to improve consistency and address a host of challenges plaguing the sector. Li Chung, head of the CFNA's plant-based food subcommittee, suggested that for local consumers, product labeling can be confusing or even missing. Uh-oh. Further, businesses have no standards to follow during R&D and production, causing unhealthy competition that weakens their motivation for innovation. Okay. Let's read more before I say anything about this. This is sounding like it could be a good thing or a bad thing. New standard aims to safeguard consumers and companies alike. CFNA pointed out the government hasn't yet formulated a national standard, and existing ones from the industry are inadequate, so it's imperative to form a set of standards in line with international norms to help homegrown brands expand beyond China. The goal is to establish unified standards to ensure the rapid and sustainable development of the plant-based industry by addressing challenges like inconsistent product quality, unclear marketing terminology, and limited consumer understanding. Damn, this is looking a little dangerous. I mean, I think it could be a good thing. I think it could be a good thing to have a set of quality standards for plant-based products. If it is able to improve the quality of the products without a great additional cost. The marketing terminology is making me nervous because, again, that's what we've seen with the very helpful regulators here in Europe who want to ban terms like plant-based burgers and plant-based sausages. Which, by the way, since again I have a few people in here right now, let's also share noconfusion.org. Is it noconfusion.org? Yeah, here we go. So if you haven't already done this, you can sign the petition to oppose the European Union's ban on plant-based terminology. Tofu sausages, this is one of the things that is going to be banned under the proposed regulation. Plant-based burgers, plant-based steaks, plant-based chicken. These are all things which is eminently clear what we're talking about. So the website for the petition is noconfusion.org. That's us telling the European Union what we think. Let's hope we don't have to try and tell the CCP, hey. One thing they might be a little bit hard to communicate with about this. We'll see. Crucially, this doesn't represent an effort to impose constraints, raise hurdles, or hinder the industry's development. Okay, all right, we're relaxing. Okay. Instead, Lee suggested a group standard would safeguard the process. Instead, Lee suggested a group standard would safeguard the progress of businesses, help them move towards standardization and regulation, and create a broader development space for them. The establishment of the standard is aimed at systematically regulating product definitions, classification, core nutritional component requirements, as well as labeling. This, CFNA argued, will protect consumer rights and drive healthy competition. Okay. I don't mind at all the nutritional standards. Because, as I'm always saying, plant-based meat is healthier than meat. Right, here we've got products that are higher in fiber, that are lower in calorie density and lower in saturated fat. And we have now several studies, including systematic reviews and RCTs, showing improvements to cardiometabolic biomarkers for people consuming plant-based meat alternatives in place of meat. So largely we're already talking about products which are healthier than meat. But it is the case that there's no standards they have to adhere to, and so some products can be unhealthy. Some products can be too high in salt, or too low in protein, or not have, what's the word I'm looking for? Fortifications, right? And I don't think that that's a good thing. It could be make products like a little bit cheaper if they kind of undercut everyone else and just bang them full of a load of salt. And, you know, on one view you would say, well, consumers have access to that information, and if they prefer the healthier products, then they can get the healthier products, and that's like free market competition, right? I get that. But I do think it's a good thing if there's like a set of nutritional standards that plant-based producers stick to, and then consumers can be broadly confident that any plant-based products that they're consuming are going to be healthier than meat products. Again, that is already the case for the most part. On average, like for almost all plant-based meat alternatives, you're looking at lower calorie density, you're looking at higher fiber content, you're looking at lower fat and saturated fat content. So most of these products are already healthier than meat products. So I don't think it's necessarily a good thing if there's so much kind of undercutting that. Hey Pia, hey young bloods. Hey G2, nice to see you. Vegan Anthem. Yeah, trying not to G2. Bretta, nice to see you. Soy Daddy, what's good? Oppenheimer in the house. We got In Depth, we got Jake Lagatar, nice to see you, Jake. Oh, it's all kicking off. It's all kicking off. Alright, well this was a bit of a reassuring paragraph. Let's see. The establishment of the standard is aimed at systematically regulating direct product definitions, classification, core nutritional component requirements, as well as labeling. Alright, we read this already. CFNA argued, protect consumer rights and drive healthy competition. As part of this effort, the plant-based arm of the organisation will design certification marks to help member companies efficiently reach the market with their products. Okay. So there's going to be some sort of certification then that products can get if they meet a certain standard. Now that I do think is a good idea. And they've mentioned here that, yeah, the idea is to make Chinese plant-based meat brands more competitive on the global stage. Which again, I can't overstate this. That would be a really good thing. Because you know where has the highest manufacturing capacity to make loads and loads and loads of low-cost products? and has the highest energy production capacity to make loads and loads and loads of food products? It's China. China. At the moment, we've got Beyond Burgers here in the UK around. They're imported from America. They're some of the most expensive plant-based meat that you can get in the UK is Beyond Burgers. And I'm not aware of any Chinese brands. I might be speaking out of turn there, but I'm not aware of any Chinese plant-based meat brands that are available in the UK currently. We have a few British brands, a few European brands. We have Beyond, and I'm sure a couple of other Americans as well. But famously, everything is made in China, right? They have the manufacturing capacity and the energy capacity to produce things at scale more cheaply than anyone else in the world. And they're going to be turning that might towards plant-based meat alternatives. So this is potentially a really good thing. CFNA's plant-based subcommittee was launched in May 2025 to advance plant protein applications and bolster engagement with regulators to support policy development for the sector. This year, the branch will host a national roadshow to help food companies seize the market opportunities and expand their brand influence. Lee suggested that the industry has entered the mainstream only in the last 5 years, but already there's a trend of passing off inferior products as superior ones and bad money driving out good ones. The lack of unified standards, he said, had led to disorderly market competition and hindered the industry's development. Interesting. Okay, so look, a lot has been made of the passing plant-based trend in Western markets, in the US and in Europe and elsewhere. A lot has been made of the falling sales of such products since about 2020, 2021. But in China, they're only just becoming mainstream in the last 5 years. And yeah, they're talking about the danger of inferior products sort of polluting the category, I guess. You don't really want this unhealthy competition where producers are driving down the quality in order to undercut each other. So disorderly market competition hindered industry development. The move comes at a time when foreign brands like Beyond Meat and Oatly are struggling in the Chinese market, while homegrown businesses are increasingly looking to go global. US President Donald Trump's tariffs have pushed Chinese companies to relocate manufacturing to other countries and enter the market with their own consumer brands. This shift is also a response to expanding industrial overcapacity and a slowdown in domestic consumption. According to Dow Foods International, a Toronto-based impact investment firm focused on China, these businesses have spotted it as an opportunity to drive higher margins, brand value, and market resilience in international markets. Still, with the government investing heavily in alternative proteins and the health benefits of a vegan diet keeping consumers interested in the category, there's a lot of scope for growth. An industry-wide standard could propel the success of China's plant-based producers both locally and internationally. Well, there you go. This sounds like positive stuff for the plant-based sector in China. We know, of course, that China is already mogging when it comes to cultivated meat, with the highest number of patent families, beating out the US and many European countries who are in the cultivated meat game. And now we have this industry association for the plant-based category, which is less than a year old, and is already doing bits to bolster engagement with regulators, support policy development for the sector, doing a national roadshow, and now developing this set of standards that's going to help plant-based meat alternatives from China go international. So if you're in a market like the UK, or I don't know, I want to say most places, I haven't seen these products, plant-based meat alternatives from China. You might be about to start seeing them. And if any other Chinese manufacturing is anything to go by, that might be driving down the cost of plant-based products as well. So, good bit of news out of China here. This is real good hopium because, again, we've got like, I think 1 in 7 people in the world are in China. So we get locked on to what's happening in the US, what's happening in the UK, like basically in English-speaking countries for the most part, and a bit of Europe. And then there's that graph of like over half of the world's population live in this circle, and that's China and India and a couple of other places, I guess. And they are having, from our perspective, a bit of a quiet revolution with alternative proteins. True Peer for the Animals, thank you. Hit like on the stream if you didn't already. Nice to see you, Hummus. So there we go. Good for you, China. Good for you. And good for the animals, ultimately. Alright, we got one more good news article on vegan FTA, and then we'll have a laugh at some of these meatheads over on LinkedIn. UAE's alternative protein strategy, building a regional hub for sustainable food innovation. We read just a little bit about the United Arab Emirates and their protein strategy when we read that Reddit post about agronomics and Jim Mellon's investments in the Middle East. And I think there's good reason for hopium here because much like Israel and much like Singapore, which are the places with the highest number of alt protein companies per capita, there is sort of fragile food security here. Right, we're talking about countries which are largely desert. I might have thought that's an exaggeration. I went to Dubai a couple of years ago. It's like really a city in the middle of the desert. So of course, right, there's not a ton of animal agriculture that can happen there. Yet the population is increasingly demanding more protein, and there's, as a result of that, a ton of imported animal products. And that is not where any governments want to be. You don't want to be very reliant on food imports. Because when shit kicks off in a global sense, you don't want to be super reliant on importing a bunch of your food. The other thing we know about the UAE and other similar countries in the Middle East, they do have a few quid, as we like to say in the UK. They've got money, okay? So these are not places that are struggling for cash. These are places with an abundance of resources and this national security strategic problem that they're currently relying on a ton of imports in order to meet growing protein demand. So it makes sense that the leadership of these countries are going to be leaning into alternative proteins. And indeed, that's what we're seeing. So let's take a look at this from the Middle East Vegan Society on vegan FTA. Don't these chickpeas look weird? We've been looking at these chickpeas for too long. I think they look like little baby alien skulls. Look at this guy. We've been looking at that for too long, so let's move on. The United Arab Emirates is channeling significant resources into the alternative protein sector, integrating large-scale infrastructure projects, regulatory innovation, and collaborations between public and private entities to establish itself as a central hub for advanced protein production in the region. These initiatives are closely tied to the nation's broader goals of economic diversification and strengthening food security. There you go, it's a food security issue. With climate change, population growth, and supply chain fragility placing mounting stress on the global food system, countries worldwide are seeking innovative approaches to safeguard long-term food supplies. The UAE is positioning itself as both a regional and global frontrunner in this mission, expanding domestic production capabilities while strategically investing in alternative proteins. This field, encompassing plant-based products, precision fermentation, and novel protein sources, is increasingly recognized as vital to ensuring food resilience and driving economic diversification across the Middle East. By 2025, the UAE government and its economic development institutions had enacted bold measures to draw investment, develop infrastructure, and refine regulatory frameworks, laying the foundation for the nation to emerge as a hub for next-generation protein innovation. This is really, really good news broadly. This is a country with a lot of money, and they're getting into alt proteins. This is really good news. I think it's also one of these countries where once the leadership decides it's happening, it's pretty much happening. Which is not so much the case in like the UK, in the US, in much of Europe. You're kind of at the mercy of the market, and the wrong meat industry propaganda can catch on, and then people can think, oh, it's ultra processed and bad. In China, and I guess to a lesser extent in the UAE, the leadership decide this is happening, and now it's happening. United Arab Emirates relies heavily on imported food, leaving it vulnerable to global supply chain shocks and price fluctuations. Investing in alternative proteins supports the nation's wider food security agenda, particularly the National Food Security Strategy 2051. Is that a typo? That's kind of weird. Why is that the 2050, surely? Okay. Aims to make the UAE the world's best in the Global Food Security Index by 2051. Okay. Do you, I guess. That's just weird that they wouldn't have a round number. I don't know. Which emphasizes sustainability, technological advancement, and strengthening domestic production capacity. Beyond food security, alternative proteins contribute to environmental objectives. Compared with traditional livestock farming, many production techniques such as precision fermentation require far fewer resources and generate substantially lower greenhouse gas emissions. This makes them a compelling fit within the UAE's climate-oriented policy framework. Abu Dhabi Investment Office Partnerships. The Abu Dhabi Investment Office has taken the lead in forging significant collaborations with global innovators in the alternative protein sector. In late 2025, ADIO established strategic alliances with the Every Company and Vivici, two startups pioneering precision fermentation technologies. These partnerships aim to expand the production of alternative proteins, such as animal-free dairy and egg substitutes, through large-scale manufacturing facilities in Abu Dhabi. The planned facility, designed with a capacity of 4 million litres, will feature multi-tenant infrastructure to accommodate future entrants into the industry. It will also adhere to rigorous halal certification and food safety standards, reinforcing the UAE's ambition to become a key hub for the production and export of fermented proteins. Well, there you go. There's a couple of interesting things in there. The multi-tenant infrastructure, this is a good thing because basically it means that there's facilities for new and smaller alternative protein manufacturing companies to come and be one of the multiple tenants in these facilities. And therefore, there's basically capacity. They're saying, we're open to business. We're going to have more alt protein companies able to move here and produce and set up in the UAE. The other interesting thing here is halal certification. Someone the other day in chat was asking about cultivated meat and whether it would be considered halal. So it looks like, I would assume that's kind of a prerequisite of producing and feeding the population in UAE. And it looks like certainly these products will be considered halal. So there you go. In parallel with infrastructure development, Abu Dhabi's regulatory bodies, such as the Abu Dhabi Agriculture and Food Safety Authority and the Abu Dhabi Quality and Conformity Council, are designing a unified approval system for novel foods. This framework aims to simplify the authorization process for alternative protein products, align food safety standards, and accelerate the introduction of new foods to the market. Showcased at platforms like Global Food Week 2025 in Abu Dhabi, these efforts underscore the UAE's role as a leader in advancing sustainable food systems and embracing cutting-edge technologies through collaboration among government agencies, industry players, and innovators. The UAE's wider protein ingredient sector is projected to grow at an annual rate of nearly 7% through 2033, signalling a fundamental transformation in consumer diets and food production practices. Wow, that's pretty spicy. 7% per year growth. In 2023, global exports of plant-based protein ingredients to the UAE reached 1.3 billion, growing at 7.2% compound annual growth rate from 2019 to 2023. That must be what that's from, huh? That's not quite the same thing. Is there another 7% in here? Oh, okay, this is a massive report. I'm not going to look at this. We'll take their word for it. Strategic outlook for investors. For businesses and investors exploring opportunities in the UAE's alternative protein sector, several key dynamics are worth noting. Public-private collaboration. Government bodies are actively fostering partnerships and building regulatory frameworks that ease entry for new market participants. Regulatory transparency. Simplified approval pathways for novel foods and clear halal compliance standards are vital, particularly for products developed through precision fermentation and cultured technology. Hey, Halo Geek. That's thank you for sharing that with us. That's real interesting. Export opportunity. Well, we're going to see some interaction with some low IQ meat eaters shortly, so perhaps you'll enjoy that segment. You'll feel right at home. Export opportunities. With production aligned to international benchmarks, facilities in the UAE are well positioned to supply markets across the Middle East, Asia, and beyond. Innovation ecosystem. Strong ties with universities, research centres, and digital platforms are driving workforce development and encouraging product diversification. Wow, so this is a real comprehensive approach from the government in UAE. They're actively setting up private-public collaborations, which is incredibly important at this stage. The regulatory process is being simplified, and there's not going to be the kind of hold-ups that we've seen in approving particularly cultivated meat in Europe and the UK. They're gearing up to make export opportunities. So at the moment, they're importing most of their food, but they're going to try and create opportunities for UAE companies to actually be exporting. And working together with universities and research centres, making a good ecosystem for innovation on oil proteins as well. This is pretty much a good comprehensive government plan to accelerate oil proteins in UAE. So this is really good news, guys. Challenges and key considerations. Despite strong momentum, several hurdles remain. Infrastructure demands. Scaling up production requires sustained investment and specialized technical expertise. Consumer acceptance. Market growth will depend on regional awareness and education around alternative proteins. And regulatory alignment. Continued harmonization with global food standards is essential to support export ambitions. Yeah, I mean, this is true, but again, my sense is that UAE is going to be more well positioned to overcome these hurdles than perhaps some other countries that we've looked at. It seems like they are just going to have the resources for building the infrastructure. In terms of consumer acceptance, I think that there's I think I'm right in saying there's like a greater degree of cultural homogeneity, and it's almost like compliance to what the leadership wills, right? And regulatory alignment. Yeah, I mean, this is just a case of making sure that the products produced in UAE can meet standards set elsewhere so that they can be exported, which again is ultimately going to be a resource question. Conclusion. The UAE's ambitious push into alternative proteins reflects more than a response to immediate food security challenges. It represents a long-term vision for resilience, sustainability, and economic diversification. By combining infrastructure investment, regulatory clarity, and global partnerships, the country is laying the groundwork to become a leader in next-generation food production. While challenges such as scaling capacity, consumer adoption, and regulatory harmonization remain, the UAE's proactive approach positions it as a pivotal player in shaping the future of food systems across the Middle East and beyond. Well, good for them. Good for them. We have seen good news today from the UK, from China, and from the UAE. So this is all moving in the right direction, guys. We're pretty happy about this. We can't have any complaints here, I think. Wow, Halo Geek just getting dogpiled in chat. You love to see it. You love to see it. Oh, based in Def. Good for you. That's awesome. Congratulations, that's banging. Right, shall we have some fun with the low IQ meatheads? Should we enjoy ourselves here a little bit? Let me check these notifications, otherwise it's gonna bug me. Alright, we got a live one. We got a live one. Alright, good. Let's I think that's on this post, so let's refresh this. So I posted this yesterday on LinkedIn, and I was actually inspired by some of the coverage that I saw on Facebook of the UK by-election this week, which our super right-wing party Reform had hoped to win this by-election, and in the end they got completely mogged by the Greens. The good guys of politics, the Greens, absolutely defeated the racist Reform Party here in the UK. And there was a lot of celebration on social media. There was a lot of good comments about this. And of course, there's a lot of salty right-wingers, which is also rather delicious. And the comment that I saw simply said, go and Google the correlation between right-wing beliefs and IQ. And I immediately thought, what a great comment. Because this person's not telling me the answer. I have seen this kind of thing before, although I've kind of forgotten about it. They say, go and Google the correlation between right-wing beliefs and IQ. And, of course, when you Google that, you get pretty consistent finding that people with more right-wing authoritarian beliefs pretty consistently have lower cognitive abilities and lower IQs. Okay? Might not be politically correct to say that, but right-wings tend to be morons. Okay? And I thought, as soon as I did that, I thought, well, this is a great commenting technique, first of all, because I liked saying to people now, go and ask ChatGPT. Right, don't take my word for it. Red meat's going to give you heart disease, but don't take my word for it. Go and ask ChatGPT. Because you'll get an unbiased take, you'll be able to ask questions, you'll be able to understand more about how and why red meat is going to give you heart disease. Go talk to ChatGPT, go work it out, right? It also just reduces the amount of work that I have to do, frankly. Explaining some of these basic things to people. So, but as soon as I Googled right-wing beliefs, IQ correlation, I thought, I wonder what happens if I change it to meat IQ correlation. And I came across not one, not two, but at least 3 different studies showing, shockingly I know, an inverse correlation between meat consumption and intelligence. Anybody surprised by this? At least 3 different studies showing an inverse correlation between meat consumption and intelligence. So I posted this one yesterday. I'll just leave this here, I wrote. The study title is Consumption of Red Meat is Negatively Associated with Cognitive Function. A cross-sectional analysis of the UK Biobank. Not looking great. Not looking great for meatheads. Consumption of red meat is negatively associated with cognitive function. I like how politely it's phrased. It's not saying meatheads are idiots. It is saying that, but it's saying in very polite terms. So I posted this yesterday, well received by the vegetarians and vegans in my community, or my LinkedIn network, of course. And not so well received by some other commentators. We've got some good comments on here. There's some really good comments on here, actually. This is a good little thread. I connect with a lot of meatheads on LinkedIn. For my own amusement, really, I'll be honest. For my own amusement. I like to see what they're posting about. I like to comment on it oftentimes. And I like them to see what I'm posting about. Because I post a lot of stuff like this. Consumption of red meat negatively associated with cognitive function. And if this particular study wasn't sufficiently compelling to any particular readers, the meatheads in my network have done a fantastic job of coming into the comments and giving us an excellent demonstration of this phenomenon. So let's see what we have. This is a plant-based person. I guess I'm going to read their meathead comments only. So this person, Carleen Stark, I have seen her posting a lot of pro-meat things in the past. So I knew straight away, alright, we're in for a good one when we saw her commenting. She says, without going into the science, it's worthwhile highlighting that this is a conference abstract. It's not a peer-reviewed published paper. Pretty weak criticism, if you ask me. She said herself she's not gone into any of the science, right? She's not actually refuting anything here. She's just saying, this isn't peer-reviewed. I said, don't worry, this is the weakest of several pieces of evidence I'll be posting this week. Our friend Matt Actung is also pretty active in the comments on this post. He says, eagle eye, I noticed the same, and it's self-reported data. It would be a trivial matter for me to create a survey with the exact same parameters, proving the exact opposite outcome. I said, I don't think it would be. Want to try it? Just because the data is self-reported, that doesn't mean that you could just ask the same questions again and find the opposite outcome. Unless you're only distributing it to people who you know and have briefed that are going to give you a biased outcome, why on earth would you think it would be trivial to create the same survey and find the opposite outcome because it's self-reported? Like, this doesn't make any sense. But it's about as much sense as I'm expecting from this guy. So I said, want to try it? I don't think we've got any replies to that. So much to my surprise. She says, Colleen Stark says, I'm not worried, I'm commenting on standards of evidence. By the way, you tell me if you think this sounds like ChatGPT. For this Carleen's person's comments, you tell me if you think it sounds like ChatGPT. I haven't said it because it could not be, but something about the way that it's written, I'm very paranoid about this now. So I don't know, a lot of these sound ChatGPT brained. She said, I'm not worried, I'm commenting on standards of evidence. A cross-sectional association based on a self-reported intake presented only as a conference abstract. It's very much at the exploratory end of the evidence spectrum. Furthermore, it's not been subject to peer review, and we have very little information about the methodological rigor. Thus, while potentially interesting, findings at this stage are hypothesis-generating at best. They aren't designed to support conclusions about harm. Eh? Conclusions about harm? Does this person think that I've posted this to demonstrate that eating red meat harms your intelligence? That's not the implication that I'm making here. As researchers and communicators, we have to be careful not to overextend what early-stage data can legitimately tell us. All of this, again, I could totally be wrong, but this reads very ChatGPT to me. I don't know. But this is the sentence that caught my eye. They aren't designed to support conclusions about harm. She replies something to Matt Actor, and it's not particularly interesting. If you talk to the data enough, it will show you what you want to see. No posting of any data indicating the opposite, by the way. At no point are we going to see anyone providing any data to suggest that there's no difference in intelligence between meat eaters and vegetarians, or that there's positive association between red meat consumption and cognitive function, or whatever the thing was, right? So no contrary data. So, I mean, she said if you torture the data enough, it will show you what you want to see. Go torture some data then. Go torture some data and bring it, because you're not going to find any studies showing the opposite of this. Okay, you can comment on the quality of the evidence. It's not peer-reviewed. It's only cross-sectional as a conference abstract. There's no data showing the opposite association, okay? So you can say, torture data can show you whatever you want to see. Go torture some data then, okay? And bring it to me. Because we have not seen that so far. I was feeling particularly mean last night when I was engaging in this, but I can know myself. I said it's classic red meat eater to think that I'm claiming this supports conclusions about harm. Only somebody who eats red meat, which is negatively associated with cognitive function, would think that that's what I'm saying here. When I post data later this week showing that more educated people are more likely to be vegetarian or vegan, are you going to think that I'm saying eating tofu gives you a PhD? That's obviously not what I'm saying. She comes back, says, there's no need to caricature my position. You may not have explicitly claimed harm. My point was about study, design, and interpretation, and our responsibility as science communicators. When cross-sectional associations, especially in abstract form, are shared in discussions about red meat and cognition, many readers and followers will reasonably interpret that as evidence of harm. Clarity, transparency, and credibility matter. This is where I'm picking up strong ChatGPT vibes. The shared in discussions about red meat and cognition, like, that's a weird way to frame this. Like, there was no ongoing discussion about this that I was contributing to. And then we've got a nice rule of three at the end. Again, very ChatGPT brained. I don't want to go too hard on this accusation because I could be wrong, I could be right, but I just feel like it's not. I just feel like there's something amiss here. And, you know, you can't blame many of these people for copy pasting from ChatGPT. Again, red meat eaters, right? They're going to have limited cognitive function, so I don't want to go too hard. Right, it's not necessarily something they're going to be able to come up with arguments on their own, or engage with the quality of the evidence on their own, or interpret what I'm saying in this argument on their own. They're eating red meat. They've got limited cognitive function. That's okay. Let's be a little bit kind. I said, in case it wasn't clear, I'm not saying that eating red meat causes harm to cognitive capacity. I'm simply saying that meat eaters are more likely to have low cognitive capacity. You'd agree with that, right? 16 hours ago, no reply. I'm thinking she probably went and asked ChatGPT, is there any way that I can disagree with this? Found that the answer's probably no. And decided not to go after it. Oh, VPM says this is peer-reviewed. I posted in Soy Feed. Okay, I mean, I thought this, right? Because this looks like a journal paper. I don't know if they have, sometimes what looks like journal papers will also have conference abstracts, but I don't think it's that important either way, honestly. Like, you can criticize the methods or whatever you want to do, but I don't think that being peer-reviewed or not is determinative of whether it's correct. Now, this is the comment that picked up the most likes on the other side, and this is the argument that meatheads have looked at this post, they've read through the various comments, and they've thought, here's the one, here's the most intelligent opposition. We'll go with this, we'll like this. So this is the most intelligent, as voted for by liking meatheads, opposition comment. Benny Locke says, this makes me chuckle. You post a very vague paper that proves almost nothing to validate your opinions on veganism. Why is it that plant eaters have to continually tell us, the rest of us, about their diet? It's exhausting. Now here come the good arguments, okay? Here come the killer high meathead IQ arguments. God created animals for a reason, my friend, to be eaten. Veganism destroyed, truly. We are at the top of the food chain. If that makes you uncomfortable, then that's your own problem. Again, this is a comment trying to refute my point that meat eaters tend to be a little bit dumb. So they're bringing out the big guns here, and these are the best they had. This is the best argument, the most upvoted comment disagreeing with my post. And if this wasn't enough of a demonstration of what I was saying... Now, with that being said, I think we should harvest animals humanely, and there should be dignity in hunting and doing the right thing. I love the euphemism here. Harvest animals. We're just harvesting them. And again, this is the most liked comment. This is the best they had, right? I just commented, not beating the negative association with cognitive function allegations. Matt Actung seems to think this is a brilliant point. Bingo, well said. Again, this guy's a young earth creationist, so let's, you know, everyone's entitled to their beliefs, I guess. Based, presumably vegan commenter. Another clear example of might equals right. An oxymoronic statement and a dose low cognitive function all wrap up in one statement. Bravo. You must, Acting, you must be very strong. You must be mentally very strong to be able to juggle the hypocrisy of praying for mercy while praying for a lack of it at your local grocery store or raw secretion farmers market. Yeah, this guy seems vegan. Oh, look, Benelux replied. This is recent. As you don't even know what you're trying to say here, your sentence doesn't make sense. If you're trying to insult me, that doesn't really work, but go right ahead. Everything on Earth consumes something else. We are on a massive planet of mostly carnivores. Just because we're at the top of the food chain doesn't mean you should guilt the rest of us, and just because you're uncomfortable eating meat doesn't mean it's wrong. Truly. Most intelligent meat eater. I mean, I had this kind of back and forth with the Matt Actung debate. Like, I don't mean to sound conceited, but last year I debated a professor, and that was kind of the level that I wanted to be at when I started doing this. I thought, there's ostensibly intelligent people who disagree with my view, and I'd love to have interesting conversations with them and explore their views and look at the evidence that they're bringing to the table. But unfortunately, it really is mostly morons on the other side, which is the point of this post. I mean, there just aren't that clever people who oppose our position. There really aren't. So we've been blocked already by the likes of Frederick Leroy and Frank Mitloehner, supposedly the intellectual heavyweights of the meathead world. And we're already relegated to talking to the Matt Actungs and the Benny Locks. Like, this is not the kind of intellectual stimulation I was hoping for when I started on this journey. That's as politely as I can say that, okay? Now, here's somebody who's definitely going to ChatGPT for their comments. And Matt Actung's actually admitted to this, kind of like, yeah, I guess shamelessly, right? It's just said, yes, I do that. I guess that's the ultimate move, really. I can't say too much about it beyond that point. But just to let you know, this is the same person who I debated on stream the other day. They have not, in the last half a week, developed a capacity for understanding studies. They are just ChatGPTing their comments. Okay, they've admitted to this previously. Their actual capacity for understanding studies was demonstrated for everybody to see in the debate that we had this week. And so now they're copy-pasting from ChatGPT. But anyway, I'll humour it. I'll argue with ChatGPT. So he says, attached, a merely observational analysis of self-reported snapshot data only. Not attached, a targeted RCT diet intervention backed by controlled experimental funding. This doesn't even make sense with respect to the type of evidence. Again, either... Well, I don't even want to talk about how he might have interpreted what I'm saying, because he hasn't interpreted it, right? He's just copy-pasted into ChatGPT and asked for a response. So this has not been processed through the brain of Matt Actung, if there is one. This has been processed through ChatGPT only. What RCT does he think would get at the suggestion that I'm making here? My suggestion in posting this study, consumption of red meat is negatively associated with cognitive function, is that people who choose to eat red meat tend to be morons, more so than people who choose not to eat red meat. What RCT would get at that question? We're going to randomly allocate people to be fucking idiots or to not be fucking idiots. And then we're going to compare red meat consumption between the experimental fucking idiot group and the control non-fucking idiot group. Is that the suggestion for an RCT on this topic? There's just nothing behind the eyes with these people. Identifies potential correlation clustering. Causation remains unaddressed. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but the study length was a couple of minutes. This is so GBT, isn't it? Who fucking types like this, honestly? Google's longitudinal and shakes head. Well, I don't think he's Googling anything. It's just pure GPT. Yeah, why is Matt, of all people, looking for answers in studies? True. He's not a big studies guy, as we know. And I just thought, like, this doesn't really warrant, like, very much engagement. So I just said, don't worry, I've got some follow-up studies they'll be posting this week. He replied, again, I'm just talking to ChatGPT here. This self-reported data could make cumulative sense if used as initial weak evidence building towards the conclusive slam dunk evidence packet. And I said, noted, the initial evidence suggests meat eaters have lower IQ. And then more fallacious, appealing to evidence which doesn't make the point that he wants to make. Just be sure not to include citizens of the world's largest state in future surveys. World's largest concentration of vegetarians, 143 world IQ rank, 76 average IQ, with a link to a story about India. Who knows what's the problem with this? Anyone in chat know what's the problem with appealing to India has the world's largest concentration of vegetarians, which is true, and they're also low ranked and have 76 average IQ. I assume that's true. He's posted a source here. Anyone know what the problem is with the implication that's being made here? We saw Patrick Raceroff talking to Nick Hibbert about this, where the countries which consume the highest amounts of meat tend to have the highest life expectancy. Bingo, virtue post-mortem, fat confounders. I said, do you think there might be any confounding variables here? This is like the... in that particular Patrick Raceroff and Nick Hibbert conversation, they said, we see the same thing with cigarettes. If you look across countries, the countries that consume the most cigarettes also have the longest life expectancy. Well, that's because they're both correlated with income. So, it's just so stupid. And he's just replied some vegetable emojis. So that's, I mean, strongest argument yet, to be honest. Okay, this is my favourite. No spoilers for people who saw this in Discord earlier already. Someone else comes on and says, that's funny, because I'm a meat eater with an IQ of 137. I read this comment earlier when I was in the gym. I work out, it's not a big deal. And I thought I could explain to this person that their individual anecdote cannot extrapolate. There could be cases of people who eat meat and have a high IQ. There could be cases of people who are vegan and have a low IQ. That doesn't necessarily suggest an association. This is weaker than the cross-sectional evidence that I'm posting. I could explain it like this, right? But I decided to take some feedback that I had from my Achtung debate, which is, don't confuse these people with appealing to the hierarchy of evidence and trying to explain like why their reasoning doesn't make sense. Just like fight on their epistemic level was how I've interpreted that advice. So this person says, that's funny because I'm a meat eater with an IQ of 137. So I said, that's funny because I'm a vegan with an IQ of 138. Checkmate. And do you know, I think that this approach really worked. Because Matt Achtung's ChatGPT account seemed to have understood the point that I was making. Of course, we've no idea if Matt Achtung understood the point I was... Well, no, sorry. We've no reason to think that Matt Achtung understood the point that I was making. We do have some idea of whether he did. But Matt Achtung said this is what happens when an unstoppable anecdotal force meets an unmovable anecdotal object. So at least Matt Achtung's ChatGPT account understands what I'm doing here. This person says, I'm a meat eater with an IQ of 137. I said, I'm a vegan with an IQ of 138. Like, this is just the quality of response that this comment deserved. Someone's done it. Alright, well. Also, am I the only one who doesn't keep my finger on the pulse of my own IQ level? I think that's probably best for his self-esteem, frankly. I don't do this, by the way. I don't know what my IQ is. I think it's kind of cringe to be like, wow, this is my IQ score from an internet test that I did. I've just replied this to demonstrate how dumb their comment is, right? So that's the level that we're at. That's the level of discourse that we're engaging in here. Oh, and here we go. Another Benny Locke comment. This is the highest IQ meat eater in this comment section. Or maybe not, second highest behind this Tiffany Carroll person with 137. Been eating meat my whole life. Pretty sure I'm doing just fine in the IQ department. I don't know if that is true. If you think your IQ makes you better or makes you actually have a higher proclivity for success, then you're an idiot. I know how higher IQ does make you have a higher proclivity for success. Okay, that's not. I don't think that's really in contention. I know extremely intelligent, high IQ individuals who live really foolish and stupid lives, and vice versa. Okay, again, we're going with anecdotes here. Even if they're proved that eating meat lowered your IQ, not what I'm saying. Some of the most brilliant men and women on Earth eat meat. Anecdotal. IQ means nothing unless you can make a difference. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid. There's so much low IQ content in your comment that I would love to talk to you live. Please hit me up. We can set up a call. And you can explain to me what you've said here. I'd love to learn from you. I feel a little bit mean because nobody chooses to be an idiot. Right? There are probably things that you can do to make yourself more or less intelligent, and there are better decisions that some of these people could have made, but I think there's a good amount of genetics in here, and nobody thinks I've got a choice between being smart or being a fucking idiot. I think I'll choose fucking idiot. Nobody thinks that, right? Nobody chooses to go that way. So I feel a little bit mean for ragging on stupid people. It's like ragging on short people, right? It's like, no, there's no need for it. But being short doesn't make you insufferable in the same way that being stupid can. And it doesn't make you say things which are going to cause harm to other people and cause harm to animals. So to the extent that these people are causing harm, like... yeah, I'm going to bring on another low IQ debater. Sorry, Tone. It's instructive. There's something interesting about learning to argue with stupid people as well. I think I could have done a better job in the Matt Acton debate, just to get him to understand that he was wrong. I think everyone in the audience understood who had it wrong and who had it right there, but there's an art to getting them to understand as well. And, you know, in some ways that's my favourite debate that I've done, because he was not dug in on his view. He was not a meat industry person. He didn't have to leave that conversation without having his mind changed, or there'd be serious implications for his financial situation, as is the case with Paul Wood, for example, or the other guy, Glenn Burrows. That's not the case for Matt Acton, right? He's just like read too much Paul Saladino, and now he thinks that that's the case. And again, like, nobody chooses to be low IQ, and I think, you know, I genuinely, I feel for the guy and for his family. He's told me he's eating red meat every single day and feeding it to his kids every single day, and that he doesn't have health insurance. I mean, some people like Paul Wood, I think this guy knows better and he's lying to put more knives in throats. That is detestable. I don't feel at all bad for humiliating him in a debate. but for Matt Acton, like he's a victim of the disinformation, right? He's not. I really don't think that he's a bad person. This Bernie Block person, I think somewhere probably as well in that same ballpark. Like nurse practitioner, it's not meat industry lobbyist, right? As a lot of the people who engage in this debate are. Like he seems to just find vegans annoying, but yeah, these people should on paper be open to changing their minds if you can. If you have the patience and the crayons to explain it in a way that they can understand, in theory, you should be able to change some of these people's minds, because they're not bought in, they're not bad faith like the likes of Paul Wood and Freddie Leroy and Frank Mitloehner. Right, they're just misled. So other than this, I think we've just got some based vegan commenters, so I won't go too much into these, but yeah, a couple of a couple of low IQ meathead commenters, and a couple of ostensibly high IQ meathead commenters who are still getting it very wrong on this topic. So this is a study that I posted yesterday. And this is the study that I posted today. I said another study confirming what many people have noticed. So different study showing pretty much the same thing. This study, I love like how politely these read. Analytic cognitive style is inversely related to meat consumption. Isn't that just chef's kiss? Like that's all that needs to be said there, really. No comments on this one yet, so there's no further content to go on this topic, but I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? There's more studies showing this as well. This is what I've posted. This is what I posted yesterday and today. There's at least one more study that I'll post tomorrow, and then there's a bunch of graphs that we can make from survey data that I have in Google Sheets, basically, showing much the same thing. There we ask about highest level of education, and we see a pretty consistent gradation where, you know, people who said that they haven't graduated high school have the highest proportion of meat eaters and the lowest proportion of vegans. Then graduated high school, some college, graduated college, and so on. And people with graduate degrees have the highest, pardon me, people with graduate degrees, or like whatever the highest level is that you ask about, have the highest proportion of vegans and the lowest proportion of meat eaters. There's a preponderance of evidence on this point. There's a lot of it. And it is not that surprising, really, if you think about it. This particular paper describes that eating meat is the default behavior, and erring from the default, doing something a little bit out of the ordinary or not like what's just given to you, like it makes sense that that's an indicator of a higher level of intelligence, right? You've thought about it a bit critically, you've come to some different decision that's not just the default giving to you. Maybe you've looked at the evidence with respect to health outcomes. Maybe you've looked at the evidence with respect to environmental impacts. Maybe you've looked at the evidence with respect to animal sentience and animal cruelty on factory farms. Maybe you actually know what's going on. You're not just going along with the default. It's not that surprising that higher IQ people are more likely to be vegetarians and vegans. So I'm going to be posting a few more of these this week. Because it's funny and it triggers meatheads. So here's my LinkedIn page. You connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't done already, and you'll be able to enjoy the posts and engage in some of the comments therein. Here's somebody who is meant to be a high IQ meat eater and meat advocate. Ty Beale. Ty Beale, PhD, no less, host of the Ty Beale Show. In many ways, he's like the dark Chris Bryant. His amateur podcast / YouTube channel is pretty much advocating for meathead views. Matthew Nagra and I watched his conversation with Frederick Leroy, where the two of them were talking about the many dangers of veganism and all the deficiencies of a vegan diet. Of course, they didn't mention that vegans consistently have better health outcomes than omnivores, right? They didn't want to get into that too much. But they love to talk about all the deficiencies and all the problems with the vegan diet, right? So Matthew Nagra and I did about a 2-hour debunk of a good amount of that episode. And this Ty Beale character calls himself a nutrition scientist. He has a PhD. He is somebody who publishes research about... Oh, look at that. We had 2 ads already. Nice. Based. He is somebody who publishes research about nutrition and ostensibly understands this stuff. He's somebody who talks about ultra-processed foods. He's somebody who talks about the bioavailability of nutrients in organ meat. We're going to see a post about in a second. So this is the rare example. Yes, he was VPM. Wasn't Ty on the misinfluencers list in that Eat Lancet report? Yeah, I think so. He's also a signatory to the Dublin Declaration, so if you need any more indicators of his good faith with respect to these topics, they are incoming. So this is somebody who, again, he's amongst the intellectual elite when it comes to meatheads. Now, we know by now meat consumption is inversely associated with analytical cognitive style. We know that red meat consumption in particular is negatively associated with cognitive function. Right, so it's a little bit like winning the Little Leagues, being the most intelligent meat eater. It's like being the tallest 3rd grader, right? But this guy is supposedly up there. Ty Beale, PhD, nutrition scientist, host of the Ty Beale Show. And he posted yesterday just this 1-sentence, 5-word post. Hunter-gatherers had low cholesterol. And he's followed up in the comments, and most ate a lot of lean meat. Now, this is the kind of reasoning that I expect from someone like Matt Acton, who even for a meathead is not up there. He is not the tallest 3rd grader, okay? But this guy's meant to be the intellectual elite of the meatheads. He's a nutrition scientist, he has his PhD, and he's making the same appeal to evolution arguments that we see right on the bottom tier of the hierarchy of evidence and right on the bottom tier of the hierarchy of meathead intelligence. So I was kind of taken aback by this, honestly. I'm thinking, like, I don't have a particularly high opinion of this person, but I looked at this and thought, you're better than that. So I've commented on it. I'm sure you don't weight what our ancestors ate as more important than modern science when it comes to healthy diets, right? We've got a bit of back and forth with Matt Acton. It's not particularly high IQ, compelling stuff. I think I won't waste time reading that. But this is a day ago, and I didn't get any reply from Ty Beale. I said, I'm sure you don't weight what our ancestors ate as more important than modern science when it comes to healthy diets. No reply from Ty Beale. I think fair enough. Okay, it's the weekend now. Like, maybe he's not looking at LinkedIn. But then he posted again 17 hours ago. So he is looking at LinkedIn. He has been making more content on here, posting more content on here. Nice to see organ meat like liver getting the attention it deserves. This is some article that's been written based on some research that he's published. Again, he's a proper scientist, allegedly. And having seen that he is still active on LinkedIn, I had to comment again. But do you think what our ancestors ate is better evidence than modern science? Didn't catch your answer on your previous post. He's got 4 likes. Like, he's seen this. He's must have seen this. Again, no answer. And again, I'm, maybe he's trying not to look at LinkedIn too much on the weekend, right? Who knows? Maybe he's not that active, whatever. But then he posted again. 16 hours ago. Out now. Our new paper on bioavailability shows its complexity and differences in bioavailability between plant and animal source foods. Some bollocks misleading paper. Again, it's like implications that meat is healthier. Again, this is bottom of the hierarchy of evidence. Talking about bioavailability, talking about mechanisms by which this could possibly be the case. Make sure that we don't look at any actual human health outcome data. And I commented again, still not clear on whether you think what our ancestors ate is as relevant as modern science with respect to healthy diets. Can you clarify? And again, no answer. So I really don't know at this point what Ty Beale's position is on the question of whether what our ancestors ate is of comparable relevance to modern scientific studies which consistently show better health outcomes amongst vegetarians and vegans compared to meat eaters. I've asked him 3 times on 3 separate posts, and I don't know, I'm none the wiser. I like LinkedIn, you can see all of a person's activity. He's just commenting on his own posts, I guess. So, who knows at this point, right? Does Ty Beale think that what our ancestors ate is valid evidence to consider alongside modern science that consistently shows better health outcomes amongst vegetarians and vegans compared to meat eaters? We're none the wiser. If Ty Beale actually understands the hierarchy of evidence any better than our friend Matt Acton does. He's posting about it as if it's extremely relevant, and on 3 times of asking whether he thinks that it is relevant, we don't know. He hasn't said anything. I'm laughing, by the way, because this person with the 137 IQ meat eater, who I said, I have 138 IQ, checkmate, has just come back and said, no, checkmate, you literally proved absolutely nothing. Did they not see what I was doing there? I've literally posted the same comment that they posted, so as to prove that it's completely meaningless. And they've come back and said, well, that's completely meaningless. Do you not see that that was my point? I'm going to reply. Now, here's somebody who seems to rate their own intelligence, so maybe they would agree to a debate if we can get them on. Debate content is, of course, the best. Like, that's where it's at, really, isn't it? We like the I'm going to accept these requests on another LinkedIn screen so that I don't dox the people. We like the back and forth on LinkedIn, we like the articles, but debate content's where it's at. So we'll see if we can get this person on. That would be a nice little victory. They've got 137 IQ though, so I'd better be careful. I'd better be careful how I approach that one. We are not in the Acton leads now. No notification could be a reply from them. Okay, it's just someone liking the comment. Well, there you go. 2 studies posted in the last 2 days showing a negative association between meat consumption and cognitive function. And this is just going to be this person liking all of the Meatheads comments. Alright, well, that's not particularly interesting. 2 studies posted in the last 2 days. There's going to be one more that I'll post tomorrow. And I'll probably also post some of those graphs showing the higher proportion of meat eaters and lower proportion of vegans amongst the lowest educated groups. Lots of argument, but very little substance from the Meatheads in the comment section here. And again, this is one of those things where this sort of provocative post is going to smoke out the best counter arguments, right? If somebody has the slam dunk study showing, actually, no, this is wrong, vegans have lower IQ, meat eaters are geniuses, carnivores have the highest IQ of all. If somebody had that study, or if ChatGPT could find that study, God knows that it would have been posted here. So I think this is now something we can say with a good degree of confidence. It's official. Meat eaters are more likely to be morons. Vegans are more likely to be geniuses. And again, I've started out with the weakest evidence here. I'm going to be posting some tomorrow, which is stronger still. And I'll probably also post those graphs showing that more highly educated people are more likely to be vegetarian and vegan. I think that this is something that we can say with some amount of confidence now. If we didn't know this already, and we kind of did, meat eaters, higher proportion of morons. Vegans, higher proportion of geniuses. Vegans, higher IQ on average compared to meat eaters. So, there we go. I don't know that we're going to get any worthy debate opponents, honestly. We've seen absolute idiocy from the intellectual elites amongst the meatheads. We've watched Sean Baker getting destroyed in now 3 different debates. There's more carnivore doctors that we can watch having debates as well and getting equally destroyed from everything that I hear. We've had Freddie Leroy and Frank Mitloner block me. We've had this list of now 18 different people, professionals associated with the meat industry or advocating for the meat industry, all ducking debate challenges, many of whom have been offered up to €1,000. We got $500 offer here, £200 offer here, £200 offer here. Literally running from debate when offered up to €1,000 in payment. And then we've got the likes of Ty Beale posting evolution, though. This is the state of discourse amongst the intellectual elite on the side of the meatheads. It's not looking good, guys. It is not looking good. If ever you feel that you want to say something arguing with meatheads in the comment sections, or you want to call out something that somebody who said and you think it's misinformation or misleading, and you have that target your confidence and you think, well, this person is very confident in their views, maybe they know something I don't know, I think we can start to dismiss that worry now. There's no hidden trove of data showing that carnivores are healthier. There's no epistemological standards amongst the intellectual elite of meatheads. There's plenty of, frankly, morons coming forth and trying unsuccessfully to argue against the position that meatheads are morons. And I'm going to keep on using the term meatheads. I think it's very apt. Not only are we talking about people who are meat eaters, but we are talking about people who, in the metaphorical sense, are meatheads in the sense of being fucking idiots. So, vegans stay winning. Low IQ meatheads cannot keep up. And there you go. Right, I'm going to leave it there, guys. We had a good 2-hour stream today. Oh, we got one more notification. Let's see if this is... Alright, with just more followers, okay. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will be posting some more videos today of clips of the good bits from the previous stream and from this one. We got some good ones today. We'll see if Ty Beale clarifies his position on the hierarchy of evidence. We'll see if any of the meatheads who seem to think that there's some kind of problem with the evidence that vegans are smarter want to have a debate about it. And we will see you next stream. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you all being here. And I'll see you soon. Cheers.